Vicki McKenna show. Standing by is our friend Jim Pfaff from the Conservative Caucus to talk about everything from nonsensical polling to what's working and what's failing in these campaigns. It's great to have you back, Jim. Thank you very much for joining me.
Glad to be with you, Vicki. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, and also, let me just start, since you were former chief of staff to Tom Massey. I just want to get your kind of general take on the continuing resolution. This is, did anybody expect any kind of big success as the House, walked up to the very last moment of a deadline before the government got shut down?
Well, absolutely not. Other than Republican leadership that is constantly doing, and it's really sad that Mike Johnson as Speaker is doing this too. It's a constant refrain forever, really, honestly, almost entirely this century. Whether you got a Republican Speaker or Democrat Speaker, Republicans are going into these situations and they're going to try to take it to the Democrats. And then we always get right back to the same point where they're going to propose the same level of spending that was there. I mean, Thomas's big argument is we never do the 12 appropriations bills. He's absolutely right. I've been talking about this for long before working for him. And it's just this constant refrain of, we're going to stick it to the Democrats and we're going to listen. We just got to take care of this right now because we're going to come back next year and we're going to deal with it. And they never do. So no, it's not surprising. And that's why Thomas has been so adamant in these Rules Committee hearings that you're getting these great clips off of, because he's just arguing this point.
Well, and he's tired of it. That's the thing, is that I'm tired of being dragged into the lie of the exact same, act in the play. We weren't going to get the SAVE Act out of this. We weren't going to get HR2 the last time we had this negotiation. They decided to do the exact same thing. December 30th, it's the drop dead date on this supposed bipartisan negotiation, which basically kicks the can and adds money for Secret Service, which quite frankly hasn't proved it can do anything with the money that it's got. So we actually added money. It's no wonder people kind of, roll their eyes and say, what the hell good is my vote? When neither party shows them anything decent. All right, I want to get to...
Well, by the way, let's interrupt there real quick and just say this. Listen, you're throwing good money after bad, because the Secret Service is not making any substantive changes in its processes that would require to have more money, and every indication is they got plenty of money as it is. The problem is they suck right now.
They suck
in that organization. They're great Secret Service agents. I'm not trying to say they're all bad, but the leadership sucks, and they keep throwing money at it. You cannot fix a problem with money.
No, you can't fix a problem that promotes inept people based on DEI principles, and no, there's no demand that changes. So that's what they did. That was the big change. I guess I'm glad they at least did it ahead of the election and ahead of the last minute, so that we could just rip this Band-Aid off the hairy leg and ouch. And then we move on and we focus on the election, because otherwise it would have distracted us for 2 weeks, Republicans fighting each other. But I do want to talk about the election.
We're sorry to interrupt again, but I'm really worried about this. We've got a letter apparently from the second assassin talking about a $150,000 bounty. I mean, now we're getting way past the incompetency DEI thing, and we're getting into who is behind, if anybody, this $150,000 bounty on killing Donald Trump. No one's talking about what the implications of that are. Now, listen, the guy may have just been thrown off bluster in a letter. That, I guess that's one. It is definitely one possibility. But he seems kind of serious about it. What does that mean? Again, that you can't even fix this by fixing the DEI thing if you've got this sentiment out there that people are going after Donald Trump over and over again, maybe even further after this last incident. You
had Matt Gaetz early last week say that DHS confided in him that there are 5 teams looking to take out Trump, 3 foreign teams, one from Iran, one from Ukraine, one from, I believe, Pakistan, and then 2 domestic teams. Well, here you've got Routh, who supposedly in August drops off this letter at, and I'm using finger quotes here, at a friend's house that talks about $150,000 bounty and says he's already failed. when the, attempted assassination was, in September. So that's odd. Why would the DOJ release that? Indicating, because obviously Ryan Routh did not have the dollars to pay somebody, but did somebody else? Why would the DOJ have released that? Why would you essentially telegraph to lunatics that there's a bounty available for Donald Trump, especially when Matt Gaetz says, Department of Homeland Security just confided in me that there are 5 teams looking to take him out.
We're not releasing. We didn't release the diary of the Covenant shooter, because we got to keep that down because we don't want to cause problems. But the DOJ is willing to release this. Listen, maybe we're all wrong. Maybe it's just a conspiracy. I got to tell you, it feels really weird, and the American public is right to be concerned about it. This
Absolutely
is a
true.
Time history right now.
Bill Barr, if you've lost, one of the ultimate deep staters, Bill Barr, who just went off yesterday saying this is outrageous that the DOJ, number one, would ever release anything like this, but also that this guy claimed in August that, he had been planning this since August. And so, when you've even when it's becoming so obvious that even Bill Barr says, hey, there's some ominous implications here. Then let's look a little bit closer and not just listen to, the talking heads tell us that it's time to move on. All right, we got to talk about elections. So we've got to talk about polling in particular. This polling is nonsense. It doesn't make sense to me at all, Jim. And you've been around the block on this. You've got Trump looking like he's closed a gap of about 10 points in New York. That makes no sense because then it says Kamala Harris is up in Michigan. How can Trump be closing a gap in a blue state, but Kamala Harris is opening up a lead in a purple state? That just doesn't square.
Well, they were doing this in 2016, you'll recall. They had Donald Trump with no chance to win, and then suddenly he pulls it out. The different dynamic being we all, on our side of things, are sitting back wondering, okay, so that was 2016, but in 2020, we have credible questions about how the election was run, and much of the changes that took place in 2020 are still there this year. So that is worrisome when you see these polls. How are they going to try to pull it off? That said, these polls do not make any sense at all, and I do believe they do not reflect what's really going on. I was just yesterday in Reading, Pennsylvania for the Tucker Carlson event that was there. They had Alex Jones and Jack Posobiec there. And, I'm seeing evidence in that state that people are really fired up to want to do what's good. It may be that the efforts of Cliff Maloney and Scott Pressler up there to get people registered to vote, those numbers are very clear. Republican registration is way, way up by hundreds of thousands because of the efforts of them and others in that state. That just may save Trump in all of this if they get all those people out to vote. But there are weird shenanigans going on with this polling that seems really odd. It's not consistent with other numbers that we see in polling that show that the American people in high levels and in various demographics are very much more positive about Donald Trump's ability to handle the economy than Kamala Harris's. And the economy is the big issue in this election. So Donald Trump is really set up to be in the driver's seat in terms of public sentiment. So what's going on with these polls? I think that they're modeling them weird. Not all these polls.
I think so.
They're modeling. I think they're skewing it. I really do believe that.
Well, when you see independents +4 for Kamala Harris, and I just saw this on the Interactive, you can go find a link to this at Citizen Free Press. You had +4 for independents for Kamala Harris. That makes 0 sense. 0 cents, especially because 3 weeks ago, we heard that Trump was leading independents by 6 to 10 points. And all of a sudden, what's changed? I mean, did people, did independents just love the word salad so much and they love Tim Walz saying we can't have 4 more years of this? I don't know.
Well, independents going into an election when they're not at the point where they're thinking, okay, I got to decide what my vote is now. Then when you do these fluff things like the Oprah interview and some of these other things, and the fact that the media is just like all in lying about the situation with Kamala Harris, then, you might see certain things in the polls. But this seems really, really odd. But the other factor that's happening right now, and these are independent-minded people, you see these massive votes positive in the Teamsters Union and in other unions for Donald Trump. So there's really an energy in the union crowd that might typically be suspicious of wanting to vote for Republicans. They're on their way there. The Teamsters Union president spoke at the Republican National Convention, but really, honestly, you get down to brass tacks, the reason that he did so is because he knows that his base of union people, union members, are for Donald Trump, and he cannot work against him if he wants to keep his position. That was a big reason why he was there. He might have some sincere reasons personally to want to do that also because of policy, but nonetheless, that's what he's looking at when you see him there. That was a risky move on his part. So I do believe independents are there for Donald Trump. I do believe union members in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, where union membership matters in these elections, I think that inertia is there too. This may portend, and my spidey sense tells me that it portends something positive for Donald Trump in all three of those states. But, again, the polls make it very difficult to figure that out. And it also makes voters question what's going on, too.
Well, yeah. And you had Byron Donalds early this week indicate that he had an insider at UAW tell him 65 to 75% of auto workers who are unionized are also leaning toward Trump. You had the steel, I think, steam fitters in New York City are 70% for Donald Trump, the largest local. So yeah, you've got the trades unions definitely. To your point about Sean O'Brien, Sean Fain chose the different direction. He's the head of the UAW. His membership also supports Trump. But I'm not sure, what on. I think he's so committed. I think the UAW is so committed to the Kamala Harris campaign. They can't renege on the dollars they have promised her from union dues remittances. So one last thing before I run out of time with you, Jim, and that is, what are they doing? What's Trump doing right? What could he do better?
Well, he actually has been consistent on policy issues. Like one of the big concerns with Donald Trump from time to time can be if he gets off track because he's upset about something and loses focus. He did a little bit of that in the debate with Kamala Harris, so there's always reason to be concerned with it. But he's been very consistent. He's talking about tax reductions. He's staying focused on getting rid of the tax on Social Security income, on tips, and other things that he's working on, and overtime. Those have been very consistent and useful. He's talking about the tariffs, which, by the way, is getting to the auto workers because he is going to go to war with China on using Mexican manufacturing facilities to get in their cheap cars, so to speak, to compete or whatever they want to do. And also, he's talking about immigration and deficit. It's been very consistent, and I think that is resonating, certainly with people in the crowds that he still is getting, the large crowds he's still getting in events that he's doing. I mean, I think he's right. He seems to me to be right on message with the things that are going to matter most to voters, whereas Kamala Harris is distracted by abortion and LGBTQ discussions and her fake "we're going to reduce living costs" thing when she could do that now if she wanted to. Trump made that point in his last major event, and I think it nailed it. And that's going around social media. People are seeing that. So the distinctions are actually very clear, and Trump has been disciplined enough to make those distinctions notable by the statements that he's making. So that's how I see it playing out. And I think it's a good messaging if he stays on it and gets enough opportunity to make a big splash with those statements and the comparisons that he's making.
Yeah, I don't have any complaints about what Trump is doing. Every now and again, he goes off the rails, but that's what he does from time to time. But he has been very, very disciplined, and I think he is hitting the right points. I love no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. I love that is an overt policy that is directed at working people. And those are the people who are going to put him over the finish line if he wins.
True. True.
Absolutely.
And by the way, and Kamala Harris has no answer to it because she can't commit against those policy points because she will lose her base by doing so. They'll
notice she stopped ripping off MAGA too. I've noticed that she stopped trying to rip off Donald Trump. It wasn't working for her. Thank you so much, Jim, for jumping on the program today. I always love it when you're on.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Vicki.
And please check out theconservativecaucus.org, theconservativecaucus.org. We'll take a quick break on the Vicki McKenna Show.